Happy Friday, April the 5th. Connor Barnett here alongside Paul Hickey of NoOffSeason.com. Welcome back to another Overflow Show, the premium podcast dedicated to helping our premium members level up their sports card investment practices. Per usual, guys, we want to thank each and every one of you for the fantastic support you guys provide us, and we're looking forward to giving you guys as much guidance and valuable information today as we possibly can. Even if you have a question submitted early in the show, I would stay tuned for the entire episode because we got a lot of good stuff to unravel today. Also, be sure to check out your updated member dashboard feature via the top right button after you sign in as a premium member at nooffseason.com. And always look to utilize Sports Card School as a tool no matter what your current situation looks like when it comes to flipping sports cards. There'll be something there that can help you out. Also, be sure to utilize our updated sports card rankings at nooffseason.com. We can find singular player profiles for players and cards that we recommend that you buy with direct links to strong buying opportunities. And of course, if you are a premium member listening to this podcast, wondering how you can get your questions answered in next week's Overflow Show, just head on over to nooffseason.com/ask. That is nooffseason.com/ask, and we will let you know once we have received it and when it will be answered. Paul, how are we doing today? Are you excited?
It's my favorite time of the week, Connor. I love talking to you, and I love answering questions from our premium members of the nooffseason.com fam, so I'm ready to get into it.
Let's do it. Let's go ahead and hop right on into things. Today, we're going to hit on questions from Ian T, Gregory R, Frank K, Skeeter R, Barry S, Bo B, Bill C, Irvin R, Brendan L, Brian Z, Michael C, Rob B, John R, Nick H, Aaron A, and last but not least, Jamie M. Had some interesting news the last couple days in the sports card world, so got a lot to get into. We will hop right into things with our man Ian T, who's got a couple of questions for us. First, Ian says, can you explain how the numerical grade numbers are arrived at using PSA as the example grading company? For instance, say a card is in gem mint condition, edges, surface, and centering are all 10s, but one corner has a bit of white showing on both sides or on two corners of the card back or front. Is that a 9, an 8, a 7, etc.? Says, I've never personally submitted any cards for grading, but I plan on doing so in the near future, so I'm hoping to gain some insight on the subject. I understand how the process works, what graders are looking for, but I am not clear on how much graders deduct from 10 for any given flaws. Looking forward to hearing your take on the grading equation. And then a second question. Actually, Paul, you want to go ahead and answer this one first, and then we'll go in order?
Yeah. Ian, great question. Welcome into the hobby. Welcome into the nooffseason.com family. You are in the right place, my friend. You found us as you were entering into the hobby, which is great timing because we're here to help you make the right decisions. And the first part of your question in terms of how PSA arrives at their grades can only really be explained by going to psacard.com/grading standards. And so I'm sharing my screen with you now. I'll read the grade definition of a gem mint 10, and then I'll kind of leave it to you to go over to psacard.com/grading standards. A PSA 10 is a virtually perfect card. Attributes include 4 perfectly sharp corners, sharp focus, and full original gloss. A PSA 10 card must be free of staining of any kind, but an allowance may be made for slight printing imperfection if it doesn't impair the overall appeal of the card. The image must be centered on the card within a tolerance not to exceed approximately 55-45 or 60-40% on the front and 75-25% on the reverse. So this is the grading standards are there for PSA, all PSA grades, PSA 1 through 10. And you can go check them out yourself. But as you can see, I mean, like layman's terms of the definition, like layman's breakdown is like, it's totally subjective. It's totally subjective. So it depends on what grader you get. It depends on what kind of day they're having. It depends on how they feel about the particular card that you sent in. It's definitely going to depend on what the set typically is supposed to look like. So for example, where it says a small allowance may be made for a slight printing imperfection, what they're doing there is they're just basically covering their tracks in case say like all kabooms from 2018 football, absolute football, for example, like all kabooms had like a print line across the top. Well, they're not like they want gem mint 10s, so they're giving themselves a grading on a curve basically can happen, right? So I guess it'd be the equivalent of grading on a curve in your math class or your science class from back in the day. But I will say that the best thing you can do, Ian, though, is go to Sports Card School at nooffseason.com. So click on Sports Card School, and there is a lesson called Top 5 Things to Do When You Find Your Old Sports Card Collection. Within that lesson, there are several videos. The third video is called How to Manage Your Time and Fun, Where and How to Start Selling the Cards You Already Own, Grading Overview. So it says Grading Overview, Liquidating Your Old Collection to Build your Starting Bankroll. But this is a massive video that shows like how to make a PSA submission. And not only like how to do it online at psacard.com, but how to actually prep your cards for that process as well. So I would recommend that you check out all of those resources, and hopefully that helps answer your question.
Great first question from Ian there. Thanks for the answer, Paul. Let's hop into number 2, coming from Ian. Can you turn a profit flipping second year, fifth year, or even 20th or greater year cards of a given player? Using LeBron James as an example, he's been in the NBA trading card community since 2003. Can you make money flipping his 2012 or 2020, whatever it may be, cards? And if the answer is yes, do the cards always need to be graded? Would it only apply to superstars? Paul, thoughts here? Why do we stick to rookie cards so frequently? Can you and should you move away from rookie cards? What do you think?
There are a lot of opportunities actually that exist to flip non-rookie cards. Typically they would be low serial numbered, short printed cards for the top players from each sport. The superstars, even the GOATs have cards. And so there can be super short printed, like, a Kaboom, for example, of a top player, a Color Blast, which typically comes out of Prism, but depending on the sport, it can come out of different sets. For LeBron specifically, now, and also like gold prisms, like gold prisms out of 10. Like there are people that collect the rainbow of prisms, and even in other sets like Select, there are collectors that really want to go out and get low serial numbered or super short print cards for non-rookies. So you can make money flipping them. An example for LeBron, even on a base card, that you were able to make some money on back when this card first came out, and even still today, there's this Kobe tribute dunk card, which is a horizontal card in Prism. It's LeBron's base card from 2020. So it's obviously not his rookie card. You asked about 2012, 2020, and 2023, LeBron specifically. So I went there for you. And I'm pulling out this one as an example. This card raw sells for about $8. This card in PSA 10 sells for $70. So there is an opportunity to make some money from a raw to grade standpoint on a card like that for LeBron James. There's also, if you were to go to, let's say, these 3 years for LeBron non-rookie cards, you would find, his Color Blast from 2020 Spectra in PSA 10 sells for $4,500. That card raw sells for over $1,000, $1,100. In PSA 9, it sells for $2,200. It's a super low pop card, super short print. So that's a specific example of how you could make money off of LeBron James cards from 2020. There are actually several examples from 2020. I'm not going to go through all of them, but that kind of gives you an idea of how to do it. In 2012, his Silver Prism in PSA 7, the last sale of that card was over $2,000. So you could find that card. What's interesting is raw, it sold $6,000 for $6,000, but that latest sale was back in 2021. In PSA 10, the last sale was about a year ago, for over $17,000. So there's examples right there. That would be pretty much an unofficial super short print because it's a very, very raw card. So the card has to be from a player like LeBron or LeBron's caliber for it to be a non-rookie. It then has to be super rare, and that can mean a short print or in PSA 10 and a low pop count. A lot of LeBron autos are super, like most LeBron autos are like super, super, super rare because he was Upper Deck exclusive and he didn't sign very much. That's kind of a Captain Obvious answer. I've tried to go in a direction where like you've got a budget option with the 2020 base card Prism tribute dunk, Kobe tribute dunk, that actually sells pretty well in PSA 10 for a base card, all the way down to like a super short print. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, I love that breakdown, Paul. I love the emphasis on the raw to grade plays. I also think, placing an emphasis on it has to be the right player, aka kind of got to be in that GOAT category, got to be a high-end card. I love those things. And because if you don't follow those categories and you get someone that's not a super prominent player, you could spend a lot of time trying to flip low-end cards that don't have a lot of liquidity or might not move in the market as well as rookie cards will. So I think that in terms of spending your time there, Paul's nailed it on the head in terms of the qualities you want to look for when finding cards that you can flip for non-rookie players. So great job there, Paul. I'm on the same page. We'll have a bit of question number 3 from Ian here. I have about 125 Bowman Chrome University firsts, with most falling in the top 25 NBA prospects and top 20 WNBA. I purchased as a lot for a very reasonable price, all raw, all base. Should I be looking to sell the ladies before the WNBA draft on April 15th or right after? Same situation as the men, but obviously with a June 26th draft date. Is it best to sell these individually or in small lots, mixed players, or all the same? Paul, what are we doing with all these prospects for basketball players?
Well, oftentimes I get hung up on answering these questions because I try to make a point as well, but I'm going to go ahead and answer Ian's question and then I'll make my point after. So Ian, I think the answer is like, yes, you should probably just go ahead and liquidate all of these during these drafts. So the WNBA draft is in 10 days. So get your ladies ready. Get your WNBA draft prospects ready to list and get them listed. Do the same thing with the Bowman Chrome University men's basketball players for the NBA draft. What I want to say, because that is definitely the strategy. The strategy is to move really all cards at a point when the most media attention would be on these players. And so the draft is always a good selling marker, regardless of sport, regardless of, baseball is the exception there because the guys don't have cards yet, but now we've got college cards for basketball and football players. So the draft is a good selling marker for those sports. So I would say, baseball and hockey are kind of the two where they don't really have investable cards out quite yet, but, let me make a statement here. So my guess is that Ian got because it's such a high amount of cards. My guess is that he ripped wax. He ripped Bowman Chrome University basketball, and that's why he has WNBA prospects and NBA prospect cards. I want to emphasize I don't condone ripping wax as a sports card strategy. If you're ripping wax for personal enjoyment, entertainment for yourself, or you're doing it with your kids, you like the excitement of the gamble to try and get the big pull, that's great. I will never discourage that because that is a fun part of the hobby. Here at nooffseason.com, though, we want to help you make money flipping sports cards. So we are never going to recommend that you go out and buy and rip wax for a sports card strategy. We've done some content around that. And typically at the end of that content, it basically says like, this is an L for the most part. And so ripping wax is typically an L unless you really want to get, you really just want to have fun, which is cool. It's allowed. Everything's allowed. So I would say, Ian, like, don't make this an ongoing thing where, because I don't think you're actually going to I don't think that you're going to like make a profit. Like, I think that you might break even. I don't know who these players are. I will say, like, let's just break it down a little bit further. Like this year's NBA draft, like has no one. So, you know, you might have Matas Buzelis auto from 2022 Bowman. Or you might have Reed Shepard from 2023 Bowman Chrome U. And, you know, those guys might get you a little bit of money and there might be a little bit of profit margin in there. But chances are, you know, you've got like, what's his name? Cody Williams from Colorado, I think is his name. And like, it's just not that great of an NBA draft. Which we're going to talk about Bronny James later on in this show, which is why I think Bronny James, in spite of his freshman season, is throwing his hat in the ring, because it's not that strong of an NBA draft class this year, especially compared to like the last 4 or 5 years. So, and then WNBA wise, really the only person with any kind of selling power right now is Caitlin Clark. I know Angel Reese is a name, and I know she has 2023 Bowman U Chrome autos as well. Caitlin Clark's first are in 2022. So, but I mean, there's no way that Caitlin Clark's cards are necessarily going to go for more on April 15th because of the NBA draft than they've gone for or will go for this upcoming weekend and this past week based on her performance in the NCAA tournament. So I think that like you've either moved off of your Caitlin Clarks before April 15th, leaving you kind of a bunch of no-name people. I mean, okay. Paige Beckers, like Angel Reese, I don't know. Like, it's not that there's not that they're all no-name people, but they're just not, they're just probably not, the WNBA draft is probably not going to be a selling marker necessarily for anyone that you might be holding right now. So I really, Ian, like, I like the idea. You need to liquidate, because this is when the attention's going to be on these people. June 26th for the men and April 15th for the women. But I would not make this a general strategy to rip this wax and then try to move it. Now, we do like buying singles when they're the right card for the right player at the right time. But there's been nobody in this draft class. There's been nobody in 2023 Bowman other than Bronny James for different reasons that I've really, really liked. And I think Caitlin Clark has had like plays on a completely different timeline. So I just want to kind of underscore that point. Connor, do you have anything to add to this? Do you feel like I did a good job explaining that? I'm not sure that I did.
No, yeah, I think so. And we're going to touch more on the women's basketball draft later in the show. So I'm going to kind of hang tight to dive in there. I do want to note that Ian did mention they purchased the cards as a lot. So I'm curious what you think in terms of people trying to go out and buy lots of these prospects, trying to make plays when it gets closer to tournament time like this. Is it too late to try to be buying lots? Just say people had done it, 2 weeks ago, whatever it may be, right before the tournament started. Do you like that play?
No, I don't. I don't like that play at all. I like being very specific on the singles that you're buying. Buying lots really is a way, like moving. If you think of it this way, like when you're moving a lot of cards, you're moving that lot because you're trying to pair a bunch of shit cards with maybe one non-shit card to try to move off of it. And so you don't want to be the buyer of that lot unless you have a plan, unless you have a plan to grade all of those cards. So the only way I really like lots is if you've got 10 CJ Stroud 2023 Prism base, and you can get those 10 for, instead of paying $200 for them, you pay $150 or you pay $125 because a bunch of them are 8s and a bunch of them are 9s, and there might be 1 or 2 10s in there, right? So that's when I like lots. I like lots in very, very specific situations where you're looking to grade a particular card anyway, and then you go out and do that with a selling marker in mind. I don't like buying someone else's crap that they don't want, and then trying to piece all that together for a selling marker like a draft. If you're going to use a selling marker like a draft, you wanted to go out and get specific Reed Shepard cards, or specific Rob Dillingham cards, or specific, Cody Williams, or specific, and those aren't even really big names though. You know what I mean? Like the NFL draft is a better example this year. than each of these basketball drafts because you've got Caleb Williams, you've got Drake May, you've got Marvin Harrison Jr. We've told you to go out and get those guys, specific singles of those guys. So I don't love it. I don't recommend doing it. I definitely want everybody, including Ian, who's new to the fam, to really understand where we want your attention focus to make money. And that's really on the singles that we've got listed in our player profiles on a consistent basis for the premium members.
Yeah, Ian, thanks for the questions, sir. Definitely provided some good conversation for us to have, and be sure to keep them coming our way. Up next, we're going to hop on over to Gregory R., who's got 2 questions for us. First question, I've come across a few cards now that are PSA slab, but only for authenticating the auto. When I put the certification number into PSA to verify its authenticity, it pulls up a completely different card. Is this something to be concerned with? Is there another way to certify the autograph? To piggyback on this question, I have attached a Jalen Hurts on-card auto that I am wanting to purchase, but I'm having a really tough time comping it. Can you help me with that? This is an interesting question here, Paul. I'm excited to get your feedback for Gregory.
Okay. Yeah, me too. I do love this question, Gregory. I appreciate it. So everyone listening to this show may or may not have heard, we talk about this a lot in regards to, like, recently, this happens in all sports, but recently we've talked a lot about it in regards to baseball prospects. Specifically, you'll see like Jackson Holiday cards with his Bowman Chrome first prospect with an auto, and it's PSA labeled and slabbed, and it's PSA DNA certified auto. Those are non-pack pulled autos. Those are autos that sellers will try to sell them because in an eBay listing, they're gonna show up in the same search results as a top certified autograph issue. But unless you're astute enough to look and see the front of the card, in Topps and Bowman's case, top certified autograph issue is the one that you want. And if it doesn't say that, then you don't want it. Why? Because while it is still a Jackson Holiday autograph, he did sign that. It was signed in person and it was not pack pulled. So those do not go for as much money as the pack pulled autographs in the Jackson Holiday case that are the Topps certified autograph issue. So Gregory, that is the same thing that you have with Jalen Hurts. You have a non-Panini issued autograph. This is not pack pulled. It was signed by Jalen Hurts in person. And yes, while it is on card, it is not the same thing as a pack pulled on card auto. It is not even the same thing as a pack pulled sticker auto, which is what a lot of these would have normally been if they would have been pulled out of Don Russ, for example. So what you have, Gregory, is a real Jalen Hurts on card auto, but it was not pack pulled. It was signed by Jalen Hurts in person. After this is a base, just a regular base Don Russ rated rookie that was pulled out of the pack and then handed to Jalen Hurts, and then he signed it, and then it was sent into PSA, or maybe on site. Maybe it was at an event and PSA on site knew Jalen Hurts was a signer there and just went ahead and slabbed it with the authenticated auto. So PSA DNA is an authentication of an autograph. The card is not graded. The autograph is not graded. That's why you see authentic auto. You don't see a card grade. And that's why when you put it into PSA's cert database, you get something different because they gave it a certification number, but it's not the same as a card. There is conceivably a card that actually has a card grade on it that has the same certification number. And that's why when you type it into like the PSA card grade at psa.com/cert, you get something different. So that also could be a bug with PSA's website, which happens from time to time, not very often. But I wanted to explain the autograph, I think more importantly than the I like that you're checking the certification number, but I want to explain the autograph a little bit more. The reason why you're having trouble comping it is because cards like this don't sell very often because people don't really want cards like this. They want cards that are pack pulled autos that are either raw or graded. And so it's not that you're not going to be able to sell it, but it's just not the right card. It's not the right Jalen Hurts card, unfortunately. And it's just kind of something that people learn the hard way when they don't, like when they haven't found us yet, or when they don't ask the question to us before they buy the card. So I'm not sure what you're into it for, Gregory. It could be that you could very easily get out of this in the same selling marker for more than what you paid for it. Like if you paid $150 for this, you could maybe sell it for 200 in September, like you normally would be able to with say like Jalen Hurts's say maybe base Prism PSA 10 or something like that, so I don't think you're in too bad a shape, but I did want to explain kind of what you've got here.
Yeah, great breakdown. Hopefully that did help you out, Greg. We'll hit on your second question now. Says, I'm loving the content so far. I recently listened to an episode revolved around the card calendar. In it, Paul mentions 3 to 5 brands worth collecting for investment purposes, with all the others being for fun/collecting only. I don't believe he mentions what those brands are, although I could probably guess them from being a regular listener/reader of your content. I was wondering if you guys would list them for me and possibly even rank them in order. Not so much for baseball, as I'm pretty confident in the Chrome versus paper, Bowman versus Topps, but for football and basketball, where there are so many more licensed brands to choose from. Paul, you got rankings here for Greg?
Yeah, I think I want to add rankings actually to the website at some point. So this is a great question by Greg. We don't have set rankings on the website right now, but I mean, Greg, you're right. Like you probably could guess them. I'm going to say, if you go to, I'm going to give you my rankings here in a second, but first I do want to say, if you go to Sports Card School at nooffseason.com under the strategic process, you've got several videos, and the first video is guidelines, strategies, and plays. And underneath that, there's a link to the spreadsheet of the guidelines, strategies, and plays. And this is where you can find kind of the document that lists out the brands that we want you to look at. And so I'll just go through baseball, because I know you said you didn't need baseball, but I'm just going to do it anyway for everyone else out there. Bowman Chrome First Prospect, Bowman Chrome First Prospect Sapphire Edition, Bowman Chrome First Prospect Autos, Bowman Chrome First Prospect Refractors, and Bowman Chrome First Prospect Serial Numbered Variations. So while there may be other cards that would be desirable, those are the ones that we want you focused on. Prism and Prism Silver for football, also football Contenders Rookie Ticket Autos, rookie patch autos from National Treasures, Impeccable Flawless. For college, Bowman Chrome University First Prospect Autos, college football. So those would be the football. Basketball would be, so for the pro, we would want Prism Silvers or Optic Hollows. So Prism Silvers, obviously rookies, Optic Hollow with the rated rookie logo. You could do Optic Hollow. I don't think I said Optic Hollow rated rookie for football. Oh yeah, maybe I did. It's on there for football. So football and basketball, Optic Hollow rated rookies or Prism Silvers with RC Shield. For basketball as well, Contenders Optic Rookie Ticket Autos, Contenders Rookie Ticket Autos, and Rookie Patch Autos from National Treasures Impeccable Flawless. So there are also Kabooms that I like and Color Blasts. A lot of people like Downtowns. So depending on the sport, you would get them in different releases. And I would say that generally they're all, it's hard to rank. Like those are the ones that I would say to focus on and sort of fade everything else. It's hard to rank them against each other because they're all at very different price points. So like we could rank them kind of like by price point. Like I think the most affordable would be like your Prism base or your Optic base. Up then from there, there'd be the Prism Silver and the Optic Hollow. From there, you kind of sprinkle in those, but with autographs. From there, you'd probably go Contenders, Rookie Ticket Autos, and then Optic Rookie Ticket Autos would be a step up from there. Then you'd have your National Treasures, Flawless and Impeccable Rookie Patch Autos, like serial numbered to 99 or less. And then from there, you probably would have like maybe, depending on like if it's so there's something called a true RPA from National Treasures for football and basketball. Those out of 25 would be more expensive than a lot of your Kabooms and Downtowns and Color Blasts. But your Kabooms, Downtowns, and Color Blasts from Panini can also outsell a lot of your contenders rookie ticket autos and your optic rookie ticket autos and things like that. So those would be the ones to focus on for basketball and football. And then for baseball, again, just going back to, it's really simple for baseball. You want the Bowman Chrome first prospect auto at all costs. And then you want the refractor auto, or the refractor auto starts at $4.99, and then it goes down from there. So you've got like an auto 250. I believe you've got an auto, I'm probably going to get slaughtered on this, but you've got like auto 199, auto 149, auto 99, auto 49, auto 25, auto 10, right? So the lower you get, you've got an auto 5, and then you've got one of ones. So you're always probably the most expensive are always going to be like your one of ones from any of those sets. And then like just to sprinkle in like some F1 and some soccer, you'd go Topps Chrome, right? You go Topps Chrome, same thing as Bowman Chrome for baseball, really. And yeah, that's the overview. But I mean, the more that you dig in at Sports Card School in those guideline strategies and plays, I think you'll really try to understand it. If there's videos in Sports Card School that I actually didn't say those sets in, I'd love to know so that I can go back and kind of re-edit them so that I make sure that I say it in the videos. That would be helpful. If anybody out there is taking Sports Card School, and if I'm making errors or omitting things from those videos, I really genuinely would love to know where I've kind of made some omissions, and I'll definitely go back and correct those. Because just so everybody knows, with Sports Card School, like I do plan on probably towards when we get into like Q3 of this year, I'm probably going to go and like go back through and sort of like update and refresh a lot of the lessons. So I'd be happy to know anything that anybody finds that I can improve on there.
Good breakdown from Paul there, Greg. Thanks for the questions. Keep those questions coming. Take advantage of Sports Card School. Keep us posted on your progress, and appreciate you being a premium member. Up next, we're going to hop on over to Frank K. It says, what are y'all's takes on Jordan Love cards? His Optic Holo and Silver Prism are selling now at what looks like a 52-week high. But does that mean it's not a buy, or do you think there is still growth for this card? One thing to note here, Paul, his Prism Silver is up 53% over the last 90 days. He's right. It is trading near a 365-day high. However, it is down 10% over the last 30 days. So if you do kind of some time matching in terms of ending with playoffs, it kind of makes sense as to where it's at right now. But like he's saying, it is at a 52-week high. So where are you at right now for Jordan Love? How much room is there for growth? And are we concerned with where these prices are?
Yeah, it's a good point, Frank Kaz. I love seeing you here in the Overflow Show, man. Appreciate all your support. I mean, it does go against a little bit of like, it doesn't go against anything that we say typically, but I would agree that like normally we're saying this card is down, and that's one of the reasons why you should buy it, because we believe it's down for these reasons. And now here are the reasons why we think it's going to go up. And typically they're based on a mix of data, strong data, and like things that we know are going to happen on the calendar with a particular player. So the thing that's different about Jordan Love is that he's not necessarily down, right? To your point about these two cards kind of being towards their 52-week high. I think there is room for growth with these cards. I think we've been high on Jordan Love. Like, we're on the record as saying we think that Jordan Love is a buy, as long as you're buying the right card. He's gonna be I think, because he finished the playoffs, he finished the regular season on fire, and then he like almost got the Packers into the NFC Championship game. They almost beat the 49ers, obviously. And so, I think the hobby took notice, and in the hobby's mind, I'll speak for the hobby, which is a little weird to do, but I think in the hobby's mind, he did like make it to the Super Bowl in the hobby's mind, because like I think you're seeing the prices reflect how much of a hobby darling Jordan Love is right now. And so it's good question to ask if there is room for growth, or is pricing baked in. I think what we've seen is if you look at since that win where he took the Packers, almost beating the 49ers, that like his Prism Silver is actually down. It was selling for 800, 815. And so its average sale over, let's just look at its average sale over the last 60 days. So its average sale over the last 60 days is about $100 less than what it sold for in January. And so I think what you're going to see is if you can get this card for around $700 or even $725, I think you're going to make money on the card. So it depends what you buy it for. I think that it's easily going to be an $800 to $900, in that $800 to $900 range again. When there's the media attention around the young Packers team, Jordan Love, and the expectations for the Packers, which will be all throughout the month of August and early into September, right? So that would be the selling marker for these cards. I love Jordan Love. I think Jordan Love is a guy. I actually see this card as being I think it's at its 52-week high ish. It's not at its 52-week high, first of all, because of what I just said, right? Like I just broke down that it's not at its 52-week high. Its 52-week high was back in January. But it's close. The reason why it's much higher, look at what no one thought Jordan Love was any good in like weeks 1 through 6. Everyone was like completely down on Jordan Love. Nobody was really into Jordan Love last summer. There was some prospectors were like, oh, with Aaron Rodgers gone, he might be the guy. And there was some pricing that grew when he was the starter on paper. Then he dipped. Now I think people see him as a legitimate NFL quarterback. I think he's going to be I think at the National, they're going to be the hottest three. I think the names that you're going to hear people asking about the most at the National and paying a premium for in person at the National are going to be, in no particular order, CJ Stroud, Brock Purdy, and Jordan Love. I think beyond a shadow of a doubt, those are going to be the top 3 guys. Justin Herbert is going to be barely on the outskirts of that, but only because Justin Herbert's already had his moments in the hobby. And because of Jim Harbaugh, there's a little bit more hype, but I think you're going to have Brock Purdy, Jordan Love, and CJ Stroud. And so I think that this is a $800 to $900 card from July through the beginning of September.
Love it. Yeah, good breakdown. And I am going to say this for Frank is like, don't get greedy here. The reason that we think this is a buy is because there will be more hype when the season is about to start than there is right now. We're not sitting here saying that Jordan Love's going to come out and throw 6 touchdowns and 500 yards the first week of the NFL, right? So don't get greedy. Stick to the sell market. If you're going to buy Jordan Love, get the right card at the right price and be ready to move it when the card jumps as hype surrounds the NFL season starting.
Yeah, and again, okay, so one more thing. We can always make data kind of say what we want it to say, but I do want to say here, like, it's up 53% over the last 90 days, but that's because of one sale before the playoff win, before the big playoff win of $450. And then since the playoff win, it's just like stayed at the same price. And the last 2 sales, 675 and 690, are below the average from the last 90 days, which is 728. So I don't see, so I think that like this Prism Silver PSA 10, it's not going to be an easy card to find. But if you can find it between $700 and $730, I mean, I think there's significant profit there for you. But yeah, I agree with what Connor said. Don't get greedy. Like we're not guaranteeing that this card 2 or 3X's. We're just saying like there's probably like an easy 20% margin in here if you're able to find it for that price.
Yep, exactly. Thanks for the question there, Frank. Up next, over to Skeeter R. Says a couple of months back, I bought a raw 2020 Optic Jalen Hurts rated rookie base auto out of 150 for $450. When I got the card, there were a couple of minor surface issues. I thought that it would get a PSA 9 with a very outside chance of a 10 if the grader was generous. or an 8 if the grader was picky. I feel like I'm probably better off leaving it raw and selling during the preseason, but would there be any reason why I should get it graded if I feel like it's likely to get a 9 from PSA? Paul, I think we probably have a similar answer here, but I'll go ahead and let you take things away.
Yeah, I mean, my answer is like, if you got this card for $450, how did you get it? Because I'm seeing the average sale of this card in the last 365 days at $673. So if you got it at $450, I mean, I would definitely sell it raw, because you've got an amazing profit there, Skeeter. So I mean, I know you're an astute flipper. So I bow down to the purchase at 450 when this thing's average over the last 365 days is 673. And oh, by the way, the last sale, 745. So wow. I mean, unless I'm looking at something wrong compared to what Skeeter or you, Connor, is looking at, I feel like this is outstanding position for Skeeter to be in. And yeah, he could definitely move it raw.
Yeah, totally agree. I have the same sales data in front of me from the research, assuming that the card information is correct. A couple things to note, Paul. Even if he didn't get this card at let's assume that he had paid $670 for it instead of getting a crazy good deal. I still think that this is probably a card that you want to sell raw, and here's why. Last sale for PSA 10 is just under $1,400. Like we mentioned, last sale for raw is $640 or $745. Last sale for a PSA 9 is just $405, and there are no PSA 8 trades in the last 365 days. Paul, I'm guessing that card's probably somewhere between $100 and $150, maybe. So the thought process here is like, if you want to get this graded and you think it's going to get a 9, especially if you had paid at market value for it, you're just putting yourself in a great position to lose money, really. So I think in either position, even if you hadn't gotten it for such a steal, I think it would be a play to get it sold raw either way. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, I agree.
Cool. Good stuff there from Skeeter. Skeeter, thanks for the question. Obviously, if that was the price you got this card at, and this is indeed the right card, let us know if it's not. Congratulations there. Let us know how you do. Real quick, just to give Skeeter a little bit more of an extended answer, Paul, we waiting to sell this one for NFL Hype Cycle?
Yes, 100%. I mean, actually, like, here's what I would do. I would list it in a buy it now or best offer, and I would accept an offer at, close to the, to this between 600 and 750, because that gives him a big profit. I would just accept it, take the cash, and move on. And then if a sale doesn't materialize between now and say August, then I think, yeah, list it in a 7-day auction leading up to week 1. And I think you do really well on this.
Thanks for the submission there, Skeeter. Hopefully that answer did help you out. We appreciate the support. Up next, we're going over to Barry Sith. Says we are going to have some fun and rip some wax. We're thinking of these choices: Bowman, U, Chrome Football, and or Basketball, 2024 Topps Archive Signature Series Active Players, or 2024 Topps Heritage Baseball, or whatever we suggest. Let's say a budget of $400 total. Thanks. Paul, obviously ripping wax is not a sports card strategy for us at the moment, but for people trying to have some fun, you got $400. Where are you rolling your money at?
Not where Barry is thinking. I'm going to course correct here a little bit. Thank you for the question, Barry. I appreciate it. So here's my process for trying to come up with what a good answer to this question should be, because we've had it before on the Overflow Show, and I love that people want to rip wax for fun. So that's great. But we obviously want them to have more, like, we want them to double down on their fun, right? So like if they just rip, say, $100 box or a $400 box, like, without really knowing what's in the box, then I don't think they're going to have that much fun. I think that if they understand what could potentially be in the box, they could definitely double down on their fun. So my process for this is like, let's first of all pick the releases that we like. When we talk about singles, when we answered Greg's question earlier about the singles, the brands. So I did that. I went into market movers, and under movements, I toggled to sealed products. Bowman Chrome University, Bowman Chrome University Sapphire, Prism, Optic, Absolute, which is where Kaboom's come out of, Bowman and Bowman Draft, referring to baseball, obviously. And then I did Hobby Box. And then in the last 30 days, I sorted by average price so that obviously we start way out of Barry's range. He wants to be at $400. So we scroll down to where we get into that $400 range. We start to look at, where are we at $500? We're at Absolute Football 2018 Hobby Box, Bowman 2017 Hobby Box Baseball. We're going to keep going down. We see some Prism 2019 Football where you'd have your Kyler Murray, Optic 2016 Basketball. We're just going to keep going. Here's Optic 2020 Hobby Basketball. Could be an option because you've got Ant-Man, you've got LaMelo. We're going to keep going. We see Optic 2019 Hobby Box Football. You've got Kyler Murray. Prism 2014 Hobby Box Football. We're going to skip that one. Bowman 2016 Hobby Box Baseball. We're going to skip that one. We're going to go all the way down. We start to see some of the stuff Barry was talking about. So you've got your Bowman Chrome University 2022 Hobby Box Basketball for $307. Bowman 2014 Hobby Box Baseball for $283. Prism 2015 Hobby Box Football for $259. You've got Bowman 2001 Baseball, Bowman 2020 Baseball, Bowman Chrome U 2023 Basketball, Bowman Chrome University Football, Optic 2021 Basketball, and Bowman 2022 Baseball. So then what you do, Connor, is you go through these and you're like, who's in these? Okay. Why are we picking hobby boxes? Because you've got essentially better hits and better parallels, hit potential parallels, things like that. So we're going to fade like 2014, 2019, 2016. We're just going to fade those because we know a lot about those players and there's not a lot of hype. If you're going to rip it, there's not a lot of hype with those guys, right? So you're not going to necessarily be able to move those cards unless they grade super well, or you really, really get lucky with a big hit. So we're gonna not bank on those things happening. So we're gonna narrow it down to like 2020 through 2023 releases. Okay, so that would give us our Bowman Chrome U basketball hobby. It would give us our 2023 Bowman Chrome U basketball hobby. So 2022 and 2023. It would give us our Bowman Chrome U 2023 football. It would give us our Optic 2021 basketball. And it would give us, which is going to be the ding, 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 2022 Hobby Bowman baseball. Why? Because here's who's in it. Ellie De La Cruz, Jackson Churio, James Wood. So now what I would do, and Barry, you could do this. Everybody out there can do this with market movers or without market movers, by the way. I just use market movers as a shortcut. But the process is to go and look at what's selling for your price range, and then look at who's in the box that you could potentially pull. From a singles standpoint, I've shortcutted this and I've done it for you because I'll tell you that what you could potentially pull out of first of all, you could get two of them, right? So go get 2 hobby boxes of Bowman 2022 baseball, where you've got Ellie, Churio, and James Wood. You could pull these cards. Ellie De La Cruz, 2022 Bowman Chrome Prospect Auto First, Auto 150, sold in BGS 9.5 for $2,500. You've got Max Muncy in there. So you could pull a Max Muncy, a PSA 10 of his orange refractor auto, just sold for $1,500. James Wood, refractor auto out of 150 first, sold for $1,250 last week. These are all in PSA 10. So, a lot of these you would grade, or you could sell them raw for, like half of these prices, right? Or maybe a third of these prices, but still you're doing really well. Matt McClain is in there. So you've got Colson Montgomery in there. Oswaldo Cabrera had a big card sale in the last 14 days. So you got to look at who's in the product. And that's a loaded product with a lot of super relevant guys still. And even though like Ellie and Jackson have had the call up, they're still selling very well. And so if you're ripping wax, buying singles is one thing. I don't know that you would be able to have a selling marker for buying these singles, but collectors are still buying them. People are still buying them. So I think, you could do this, Barry, again for the Optic 2021 basketball, where you've got Cade Cunningham, Jalen Green, Evan Mobley, Scotty Barnes, those guys. That's a good one as kind of a second choice. The Bowman Chrome U, the reason why I'm kind of fading those is because by the time you rip those and grade them to where they would need to be in the condition you would want to maximize profits, we already kind of know that a lot of those people are past their selling markers. But you could still potentially hit a Caitlin Clark. You could still potentially hit some Caleb Williams stuff, some Shedeur Sanders stuff, some Travis Hunter stuff. So if you want to mix them together and go like one Bowman 2022 baseball and maybe one 2023 Bowman U football, because you've got Carson Beck, you've got Marvin Harrison Jr., you've got Shedeur Sanders. I could get behind something like that.
Great breakdown there, Paul. Barry, definitely let us know what you decide to roll with here. Paul says the move is to roll with Bowman 2022 baseball, just because of the upside of the guys that can be in it. I like that way of looking at things, even though obviously this isn't a sports card strategy. Still trying to find hints and kind of guidelines that make you pick the right choice here. So love that. Let us know what you pick. Let us know what you pull. Up next, we've got Bo B. A little bit of an update. If you guys listened to the show last week, Bo B reached out with a Braden Taylor card that had some ink on the back. This week he says, happy Wednesday. Wanted to follow up from the Overflow show this past Friday. You guys directed me to Kurt's card care for the Braden Taylor with the ink. I reached out to Kurt on Instagram, and he was super genuine and really thorough in his response. He said it should be no problem to get the stain out with his card spray. I went ahead and ordered some of his products, and we'll test them once they arrive. I'll be sure to give both you guys and Kurt an update once I try the product and hopefully have good news from there. Anyway, just want to say thanks for the suggestion to use Kurt. I'll be sure to give you guys a mention to Kurt when I follow up with him as well. Sounds like we're on the way to some good news from Bo B here. Anything you wanted to add, Paul?
Love it, Bo. Thanks for following our advice there. Glad we were right and that Kurt is a great guy. We didn't know what he would say, but we knew he would answer you. So that's great. Let us know how it goes. I really want to know if you can get this ink stain out and then what that card would grade at. And I really want Kurt to do well. I want you to do well, Bo. So thanks for the update there, man. Keep us posted.
Yep. Let us know how it goes. Up next, we're rolling over to Bill C. It says, Dear Overflow Show team, I hope this message finds you well. I'm a big fan of your show and have been tuning in regularly. Even without submitting questions of my own, I've gained a lot of insight from the discussions. Thank you for that. Just a quick note, guys, that's a great reason that you should listen to each Overflow Show episode as a premium member, even if you haven't submitted any questions. I can confidently say that there's going to be something in here that you can learn from. I literally learn every single week. So stay tuned for as many of these as you can, even if you're not submitting questions. To continue, I've been actively sending cards to PSA for grading and have a few questions I'm hoping you can help us with. Grading preparation. Is it necessary to switch cards from top loaders to submission sleeves before sending them to PSA, or can they be sent to top loaders? Improving grade. Several of my college autos and refractors are not grading well. Also, my Drake London autos have been PSA 9s and PSA 8s with an occasional PSA 10 for cards like Tua Tagovailoa, 2 PSA 8, 152 hollow, and Jalen Hurts, 3 PSA 8s, that's the hollow, number 164, are consistently grading PSA 8 despite a high gem rate for PSA 10s. Could you share any tips for evaluating cards pre-purchase to improve the chances of getting PSA 9s and 10s? And then a couple more things to touch on. Selling strategy for cards graded PSA 8, particularly QBs. Do you recommend selling them immediately or waiting for better market timing? Any strategies here for moving these 8s would be greatly appreciated. And then we're going to round things off with some Darius Garland talk. Says, I've invested heavily in several, or not heavily, I apologize. I've invested in several Darius Garland cards, included 7 of the number 288 Prism Silvers, 1 number 288 Fast Break Blue out of 175. That was $143. Both the Prism Silvers were $80. And then 1 number 288 Fast Break Purple out of 75, $195 for that purple. And a 288 Green Ice, that is $63. Considering the NBA playoffs in next year's October hype cycle, what would be your advice on the best time to sell Darius Garland? I was hoping for a price jump post-injury, but haven't seen significant movement. Thank you for creating a platform that enriches our hobby. Looking forward to your insights on these matters. Bill, these are some good questions here. Appreciate the kind words as well. Paul, I will let you go ahead and dive into them.
All right, we'll go we'll go from the bottom up here. So on DG, I think the cards you bought are great. They're rare, right? I mean, they're short printed or serial numbered. And so you're not going to see a lot of sales data for these. So you're not going to be able to play the game of, oh, he's up or he's down, so I need to hold or sell. So I think what I want you to do with all of these really is once they're ready to sell, meaning once they're in the grade that you want to sell them in, or, I think I would consider potentially grading these. But it seems like you have them raw, which is fine. So you could list them as is, or you could grade them and then list them when you get them back. And I think when you do that, you want to list them all at a price where a buy it now would be like a 2x for you, whereas you would be prepared to accept the best offer, where essentially you would net after fees and everything like that. I want you netting like 20% on your DG cards. And so even if that means holding them until the beginning of next basketball season, I think that it's the right move, because I believe enough in Darius Garland where he will have his moment. He will have his moment in the hobby. He's still young. He's on an up and coming Cavs team. And I'll let Connor break that down here in a second before I go to the next question. But from a Darius Garland investment strategy standpoint, I think it's a case where, because he doesn't have rookie licensed autos for Panini, his best cards are either the Kabooms, the rookie Kaboom, or they're a lot of the ones that you have mentioned here, Bill. So I think that, and because he's not a super liquid player that you can kind of play the comp game with, I think what you're doing is you're appealing to people who are going to be, they're going to recognize DG as an up and coming superstar. I think there's going to be a performance spike for him. We just don't know when it's going to happen. If it happens in the playoffs, I think you could cash in. If it happens next year, you can cash in. But I think until then, you're listing these in a situation where you're not going to be don't list them in an auction, basically is what I'm saying. Don't put yourself in a position where you list them in an auction and then you're underwater. I think these are good cards. I think they will eventually sell for a profit. I think you're just going to have to be patient, because it is Darius Garland and we don't know when exactly the hobby is going to recognize and really want to buy into him. Connor, I'll let you add your thoughts on DG before I go to the grading stuff.
Yeah, I think we've talked about Darius a lot the last several months, for good reason, right? He's very affordable. I think the pricing's still undervalued, attainable, and we know what the right cards are, right? Like the Prism Silvers, the cards that we've got here. So I think something that we have to understand is that Darius still is not the number one option over there, right? So at the end of the day, there's a chance that he doesn't move to the degree that a number one option would in a star franchise at a top market when he plays well. So I think that that's something to consider there. I like what Paul's saying about trying to get these graded so that you could increase value that way first. But like Paul's saying, it's almost like we're kind of waiting for a player performance spike here, Paul. But I think the reason that we were willing to kind of take that risk is because of how discounted these prints were relative to other players of a similar caliber. Would you agree with that, Paul?
Yeah, absolutely. And because we like when there's an opportunity to be right about a particular player, like when we see the talent in a guy and we see his career materializing, like I think we're doing that to a certain extent with Anthony Edwards, even though the hobby has shown more love for Anthony Edwards than they have for Darius Garland. I think we're doing a similar thing with Ant-Man. I think we're saying, like, we see in his game where he should be like at a different stratosphere than he is now at some point. And I think Darius is going to do the same thing. I don't think Darius is going to get to where Anthony Edwards is going to get, but I think Darius is going to get to just be at a completely different level than he is now in terms of like name recognition in the NBA, which is going to force the hobby to price him higher. And really, because he also doesn't have that many cards. Like he doesn't have the amount of cards that a lot of other guys have, because he was Upper Deck exclusive auto. He still is Upper Deck exclusive auto. So which really means that like his prisms, like these serial numbered prisms, rookies and the Kaboom, really are like the go-to card. So when he does have that moment, the market is not going to be flooded with his cards because there's not that many of them. So I think that's kind of another reason why I like Darius as a risk that could pay off. So I think you have to be patient though. But going into the grading questions, like,
Oh, can I add one more thing? I'm sorry to cut you off.
yeah, go for it.
I just wanted to think about timing here, so that we give like interesting options for Bill. So with the NBA playoffs starting in the relatively near future, do we consider holding the cards raw in the chance that because the Cavs are the third seed in the East right now, potentially Darius could blow up in the playoffs and we could see that spike then? Do we consider holding them raw until we see that happens and then try to send them off to PSA to get graded then?
Yeah, I'm glad you clarified that. I think best case scenario is that his cards see a rise during the playoffs and that you could move them. So you would want them in hand for that. And then if they don't move up and you still have them and you've got them listed, I would list them, right? And then let's say we're in July and you're still holding these cards and they haven't moved, or maybe they've gone down because of less interest in Darius Garland in general, then I would say send them pull down the listings, send them into PSA. If they gem, or if they grade well, you might see an immediate value increase. But either way, you would have them in hand to list them in October, which I like. And then you never know what's going to happen in terms of his pricing. I think only good things should happen next NBA season as well with Darius Garland's pricing.
Yeah, love that breakdown. Sorry to cut you off. Just wanted to get a little bit of clarification. I will let you keep rolling with the answers here.
Yeah. So on the grading side, I think there's a bunch of different things going on. So I think that let's talk about grading preparation. So that's an easy one. It is not necessary to switch cards from top loaders into card savers. My experience on this is like I've had cards grade really well and really poorly regardless of the container that I put them in. So like I've submitted cards in like basically everything and PSA accepts all of it. So like even if you submit a card in a one touch, if you submit a Panini sealed card or a top sealed card, if you submit stickers from Tops now that are in like a pack, all you need to do is you need to give PSA permission to open the pack or open the Panini seal, etc. Those are kind of extreme examples, but I just want to kind of make the point that like you can submit them really in anything you want to submit them in. The PSA recommends that you do penny sleeve and card saver, but top loader essentially is the same thing. So my philosophy on this is simple. I believe that unless I buy a card with the intention of cleaning it or doing something to it that I think will improve its value, like cracking it out of a slab or something like that, where I'm holding the card, I'm always 10 times out of 10 unless I'm doing what I just said, I'm always 10 times out of 10 going to just submit it in whatever it came to me in. The reason why is because I subscribe to the school of thought that like it's already safe and protected in whatever it was sent to me in, whether it's a top loader or a card saver or a one touch or whatever. And so by me getting it out of that container, I'm now in theory risking damaging the card in some way. And so I'm just always I'd say I pretty much always get a raw card in the top loader, and I just leave it in the top loader when it comes to me and I submit it that way. I don't take it out so that it can be in what PSA wants it to be in. They're going to grade it in, they're going to take it out of whatever I send it to them in, and they're going to grade it. So I think that's my answer to that question. In terms of your college autos and refractors not grading well, I can't speak to that because I don't know what they are other than college autos and refractors. So if you want to give me like specific examples on that, maybe I can help, but I can speak to like Drake London, Tua, Jalen Hurts. So let me talk about these cards. So I think that the reason why you're getting a lot of Tua and Jalen Hurts 8s is because it's 2024 and these cards have been out since 2021. So specifically because Tua and Jalen Hurts were both highly drafted quarterbacks, you've had 3+ years of everyone in the hobby determining which Tua and Jalen Hurts cards they think are going to gem and submitting those cards, and then taking every other card that they don't think is going to gem and selling them raw. And so I think that this is a reason why I typically don't go out and buy Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, Tua, even Trevor Lawrence and that draft class now in 2021. When I'm grading cards, I'm typically buying like the more recently released cards raw, or I'm buying older cards and cracking them out of highly graded slabs from companies other than PSA. So I would, if I'm going to grade a Tua Optic Holo, it's going to be because I found a really nicely priced Tua Optic Holo 2020 SGC 9.5 or SGC 10. And then I'm going to crack that and submit it to PSA. I'm not going to go buy a Tua raw 2020 Optic Holo and grade it. I'm going to buy a Tua Optic Holo PSA 10 at the right time, and then I'm going to sell it at the right time in its PSA 10. So I think that the reason why you're getting a lot of 8s is that the market has already curated those cards for years, and what's left at the top of the grading scale are the 8s. I could be wrong on that, but that's my guess. So I want you to think hard about your grading strategy and continue to ask us more questions, and we're going to help you out. Selling strategy for cards graded PSA 8, particularly quarterbacks. Do you recommend selling immediately or waiting for? I would always wait for better market timing. I think I would just always wait for better market timing, unless you absolutely just need cash flow back in your bank account.
Love it. Yeah, Bill, thanks for the questions here as well as the kind words. We love that you're enjoying the content and are finding value from it. Keep those questions coming and stay tuned for more Overflow Show episodes. Up next, we're rolling over to our guy, Irvin R., who's got 3 questions for us. Question number 1, I am just starting on flipping cards thanks to your channel. How long did it take you to see a true return on investment flipping and not just getting lucky on some flips? Number 2, I'm planning on purchasing multiple Brock Purdy or Jordan Love PSA 10 prisms in the $100 range, but those would take longer to go up in price. Or purchasing one Tyrese Maxey Prism Silver PSA 10 that has more risk of it not going up. I'm just afraid of putting all my eggs in one basket. How can I make a better decision using the data on market movers so in the future I can make good decisions on my buys? And then number 3, I buy PSA 10s on eBay to flip, but eBay fees are a killer. I'm missing out on grading, but I'm impatient when it comes to the turnaround time associated with it. How can I change my mindset? All right, what do we got for Irvin here, Paul?
Number 1, it's going to take you about a year. It took me about 2 years without my content, but since you have our content, I think it should take you half as much time. And I think a lot of that time is going to be just finding the right card for the right player at the right time. It takes time. And then it just, like, each sell marker is typically 3 to 4 months away. So you're going to, it's just going to take time for you to see a true ROI. I think just like kind of waiting for the sell marker, or, you know, we've talked more recently about listing ahead of the sell marker and a buy it now or best offer. So I think, you don't rely on getting lucky. Obviously, I know you're saying like you're not relying on that, but I think it's going to take you about a year. In terms of Purdy or Love PSA 10 Prism in the $100 range versus one Tyrese Maxey Prism Silver PSA 10. It looks like, yeah, because you're saying multiple, so multiple versus one. Yeah, that makes sense. It's a tough one. I'm gonna pick the quarterbacks because of the selling marker. I think that the quarterbacks, I'm always more confident in pro football than I am pro basketball. I think, like, while I love Tyrese Maxey and there could be like a performance spike that drives his Prism Silver PSA 10 up significantly, I know that Brock Purdy and Jordan Love are going to be 2 of the hottest names in July through September in the football card market. And I know that right now no one's paying attention to those guys in the media. And so because of that, I would definitely pick multiple Brock Purdy or Jordan Love, even though it's the base PSA 10 versus the silver PSA 10 maxi. So that's my answer on that. And I think that like using market movers, how can I make a better decision on the data on market movers so in the future I can make good decisions on buys? That's hard to do. I think that like that's why we're here, because we know how to look at the data and cure and basically like market movers is just data. It's amazing data, but it's just data. We know how to give you the action items based on those data, based on that data. So I don't know how to answer that particular part of that question. How can I make better decision on using the data on market movers in the future so I can make good decisions on my buys? I mean, Connor, I guess we could quickly talk about our process in like 2 minutes. I mean, basically it's to look at the top players in each sport that we know are going to get hype in the future that aren't getting hype right now. And it's to look at their most liquid cards. A lot of times, using all of what we talk about, our guidelines, strategies, and plays in sports card school, which leads us into his next question, which is the PSA 10s. So we look at the PSA 10s. We determine like, is there an opportunity to go raw to PSA 10, or is it better to just buy the PSA 10? That's based on how much money you would have to put into a raw, and then how much money there would be left over after the grading fee at the PSA 10. The higher ceiling the PSA 10 has, the more likely I think we are to recommend that it's a raw to grade. And so I think that like our process also, just to add one other thing to our process, it looks at where has that card sold in the past month of the upcoming market cycle that we're looking at as a sell marker, and is it significantly higher than what it's selling for now? And if it is, I would put those into a category of like how to use market movers to make those decisions. But I mean, it's taken Connor and I almost a year of working together to get our process down for that, and we're still, and then more to come on that, by the way, but we're still getting that down. Yeah, the PSA 10s on eBay to flip, the fees are a killer. There's definitely higher upside in grading because of that, but there's also more risk. So I can help you change your mindset with something that's coming in the future at the Sports Card Strategy Show and nooffseason.com, but it's too loaded of an answer for today's Overflow Show. But thanks for the question. Questions, Urban R. There'll be more to come on that, and hopefully that helps for today.
Up next, we're going over to Brendan L. Says, I primarily flip to fund my PC, and Aaron Donald is my favorite NFL player of all time. I know that buying him would not be a Sports Card Strategy approved move, but I'm going to PC him regardless. Which cards of his do you think hold the most long-term value? Basically asking for 10 to 20 years down the line. I wouldn't intend to sell this card ever unless it absolutely exploded. But if the hobby ever valued him appropriately as the defensive GOAT, I'd love for this card to be worth more than I bought it for. In this scenario, which of Donald's Grail cards would you suggest? I've been looking at Donald's 2021 Kaboom in a PSA 9 or Raw. I think it's his only Kaboom, and the pop count is only 67. With PSA 10, it is only 2. These currently sell for around $300, which is a reasonable price range for me. I think if I'm patient and wait for the retirement spike to go down, I can potentially get this for between $100 and $200. Defensive players, a defensive GOAT. If you're PCing him, Paul, but hoping to potentially have pricing rises, which card are you going for with Donald here?
I like the Kaboom, but I'd try to go rookie. So 2014 Prism Silver, and in PSA 10 it's down 34% over the last 365 days. 10 sales in the last 365 days. There's not a lot of Aaron Donald cards. There's not a lot of defensive player cards, and his rookie goes all the way back to 2014. So I like if someone tells me they're PCing, I want them to be challenged. So that's a challenge. It's a challenge to PC Aaron Donald. So I think this is cool, Brendan. I think it's cool. It's obviously not for me personally, but I know that like I'm in the I'm in like the probably 1% of people in the hobby that don't PC anything. So his 2014 Prism Silver, I'd try to get it in a PSA 10. That's my answer. I mean, there's 2014 Topps Chrome as well. Black Refractor out of 299 is a cool card. I do like his Kaboom that you're talking about. The 2021 out of Absolute. It's a cool card. Yeah, I mean, there's just not many Aaron Donald cards. Short answer: 2014 Contenders rookie ticket auto running left. There's another one for you. So I think it's cool that you PC him, and it should be a challenge to try to find these cards. I think that's my answer, man.
Yeah, and with Brendan here mentioning potentially seeing a rise in value, obviously defensive players don't nearly get as much love, as QBs do and things like that. Do you think here, Paul, the only real market you could be looking for is potentially a Hall of Fame induction down the line?
I would not expect any rise in value. I just wouldn't. I just don't. It's not, and not in the traditional sense where we talk about either. So the traditional sense, we talk about rising in value. We talk about the balance between a liquid card and it is we're at the intersection of liquidity and desirability. Like if I had to make an Instagram graphic that would shorten our what we do, it's like it'd be this graphic where it's like a street corner and it's like the corner of liquidity and desirability. Like that's where we live at nooffseason.com. And there's just not enough Aaron Donald cards that exist on the planet for it to be liquid. So it's what you're doing at that point is you're finding another Aaron Donald super collector who wants the card so bad that they're willing to pay you an amount that's arbitrarily more than what you bought it for. I just don't see a situation where you've got, I mean, the last sale of many of these Aaron Donald cards that I'm looking at on Market Movers were a year ago. So you don't see Aaron Donald cards move that often. Literally the top Aaron Donald card sold 219 times, like by sales volume in the last 365 days. And there were only 2 Aaron Donald cards that sold more than 100 times in the last 365 days. So there's just not many, there's never going to be many Aaron Donald card sales. So it's really like more of a specialized buyer pool than it is an actual market for a defensive player. Even though it is Aaron Donald and he is a Hall of Famer. So while I would normally say like, yeah, at a Hall of Fame, he just retired. So he's 5 years away from an announcement that he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Maybe his prices will go up by then. Maybe I wouldn't totally count on it though. I just 5 years. I don't look 5 years down the line for anything. So I have to just kind of give it a maybe on that one.
Brendan, thanks for the question and for the support. Definitely keep us posted on which card you roll with on the purchase there. Up next, we're going over to Brian Z. Says, hey guys, long-time listener, first-time caller. Brian, thanks for being here. I enjoy and appreciate your help and all the work you do to provide us with the top-tier investment advice. My question is this. Before I was a no-off-season follower, I, like many others, would waste my time and money breaking on various platforms. Long story longer, I was lucky enough to hit on a 2020 Chronicles Black Gold Vinyl out of 5 Justin Jefferson, which I ended up getting a PSA 10 on. I've been sitting on this card for over a year, trying to pick the best way to list it, assuming an August, September timeframe would garner my best results. I have 2 questions for you. 1, would I list this in a buy it now or best offer, or should I put it up for auction? 2, if I buy it now or best offer it, how do you comp a card with no comps? I have not found any yet, at least. FYI, I'm into this card, whatever the break costs and grading fees are. So let's just say around $75. Couldn't get a picture to load, but blah, blah, blah. So how we selling this Justin Jefferson Black Gold Vinyl out of 5 that ended up getting a 10? What are your thoughts here, Paul?
Great question. And Brian, thanks for the love and thanks for being the first time caller here. I love the old school sports talk radio reference. Yeah. So congrats on being lucky and pulling this, getting this out of a break. That's cool. the way that you would, let's start with this. The way that you would comp a card like this is you would go and look at, you could see if other 2020 rookies sold this exact card, sold for other 2020 rookies to Justin Jefferson's caliber. There were obviously no other wide receivers in that draft that were really his caliber, but there was Jonathan Taylor, skill position player, and there was a lot of great quarterbacks. So you could kind of comp in between if there was an exact, but I would doubt that. So what I would do is then I would go to other Justin Jefferson cards from other releases that are similar, and I would create a comp based off of an estimate. So like his 2020 Prism Gold out of 10 in PSA 9 sold for $6,700. His select club level black 1 of 1 PSA 10 sold for $5,100. His field level snakeskin select PSA 10 out of 2 sold for $3,000. Field level select zebra super short print PSA 10 sold for $2,500. I'm trying to get to, like, here's a good one. His 2020 certified, which is a lesser release, but the first off the line black etch out of 1 gemmed. So that sold for $2,200. So what I'm trying to get at here is like Chronicles is not a high-end release, nor is it a high-end brand. So there's multiple brands within Chronicles. If this was like a Prism, if this was a Chronicles Prism black gold vinyl out of 5 in PSA 10, it might sell for closer to the $6,000 mark that the 2020 Prism Gold out of 10 sold for. But if it's literally the Chronicles brand out of Chronicles, I would put it more down to like the $2,000 to $2,500 mark in PSA 10. I would definitely list it in a buy it now or best offer. And if you're into the card around $75, that's going to be a huge win for you, even if you accept an offer at like half of that. So I think that's the approach I would take. And I would list it. I would probably just go ahead and list it in a buy it now or best offer now. There's no harm in doing that at around the $2,500 mark. And maybe you just cash in and get that and put it into something else card wise or life related that you need it for. But yeah, thanks for the question. I mean, I think it's an amazing card. If it's the Prism black gold vinyl out of Chronicles, that's different. That might be more like a buy it now best offer around 5,000. But hopefully this like methodology of just showing you other rare Justin Jefferson rookie cards in, I guess comparable brands, kind of helps you understand the process.
Brian, we're pumped to have you around. I just want to clarify for the listeners and watching that blah, blah, blah that I threw in there was not dismissing the end of Brian's question. I was simply keeping the PSA certification number to himself, just in the scenario that maybe he wanted it. Definitely would never blah, blah, blah the end of any of y'all's questions and ignore them in that manner. But Brian, hope that answer did help you. We love that you're submitting questions. Be sure to keep them coming at nooffseason.com/ask. Let us know what you end up moving this Justin Jefferson for and how you do it. Up next, we're rolling over to Michael C. Says, I enjoyed the buy low, sell high vintage episode. It was great. I started looking into possible plays and came across vintage cards that were PSA 10s at a good price, but the cards looked very yellow. Does this impact the value of a price, or is a 10 a 10? I read a lot of conflicting information about yellowing and wanted to get your take. Example card linked. Michael, thanks for the submission here. Paul, what's your thoughts on 10s with some yellowage to them?
Yeah, the hobby refers to this as eye appeal. So eye appeal definitely matters. So I appreciate the kind words on the vintage episode where we talked about cards like the Jordan Fleer cards and stickers from early on in his career, and a lot of other cards we mentioned in that episode. Some Joe Montana, Jerry Rice's, etc. And even Eddie Murray of the Orioles. So yeah, I think it does matter. I mean, it does matter. There's been like some yellowing on, I think, some Kobe rookies and things like that that have gotten some attention in recent years. I can't really speak to the yellowing, but I can speak to like eye appeal. The better the eye appeal of the card, and it's subjective. Like grading is subjective, and so is eye appeal. So you might see that Jordan. We talk about a lot about the Jordan 86 Fleer sticker in PSA 8. We talk about it selling from between $800 and $1,200 consistently. And I do think that a big part of that is eye appeal. So it may be harder than the way we've framed it in some of our content, where we say like just buy one at 800 and then list it and then it sells at 1,200 eventually. Maybe, but also maybe it never sells for 1,200 because people are looking at one that you bought for 800 that doesn't have as good of eye appeal. Being that it is subjective, it does make it a little bit tougher to say like, hey, this is a foolproof way of making money flipping sports cards. But I like that you liked the episode. I like the concept of making those flips. I haven't done them myself, and I do believe that it would be hard to actually buy one card over and over again for one price and consistently sell it for more. It's something that I want to try someday, but I believe it's easier said than done just because of, I think that eye appeal thing is real.
Thanks for the question there, Michael. Keep them coming. Up next, we're rolling over to Rob B. Says, hey guys, I was curious if it was worthwhile to look at the top 2 to 3 WNBA and NBA prospects for the upcoming drafts, just like we do for the NFL, looking at their autos and variations. Paul, we've actually kind of touched on both WNBA and NBA draft earlier in the show. Did you have any more thoughts you wanted to give in terms of if we're investing in these using the draft for each sport as a marker?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Rob. Love you, man. No, I'm not into it. I said it earlier in the episode. I mean, it's not a blanket statement. It's really more for this year. Like, there's just this not a great NBA draft. It's not. It's probably going to be the WNBA draft that gets the most media coverage because of Caitlin Clark. But I believe, like what I said earlier on in this show, is that, you know, Caitlin Clark's been a different play in my mind all along. And what I've said about, I think a lot of people have looked at the WNBA draft as a selling marker for Caitlin Clark. I've always said the NCAA tournament and leading up to the NCAA tournament is a better selling marker than I used to work in the WNBA. The WNBA draft doesn't get any attention, and it gets probably more attention now than it did when I worked in the WNBA, but it's just not, you know, it's April 15th. There's a bunch of other stuff going on other than the WNBA draft. So I just don't, I mean, literally the NFL draft is like the NFL draft is 12 days away, is 12 days after, or not even, like less than 10 days after the WNBA draft. And people just want to talk about what the rumors are for the NFL draft. So I just don't. And then the NBA draft being on June 26th, you know, and look at who it's had in it the last several years. Victor Wembanyama, Paolo Banchero, Chet Holmgren in that draft. And then the year before that, you had Cade Cunningham, Jalen Green, and an amazing class. The year before that, you had the weird COVID year with Anthony Edwards and LaMelo Ball, you know, so we had Zion and Ja the year before that. So there's just been, and then it was Luka and Trae Young the year before that. So this is the first WNBA draft in a long time that I think is going to kind of be, or the first NBA draft in a long time that I think is going to kind of be a wet fart. So I don't see it with this. Now, I think in general, it is a sell marker. Like, there's opportunities around drafts in general to be sell markers. I think for anything other than baseball and hockey, like I talked about earlier in the episode.
Yeah, I agree with the NBA. And just to kind of double down on WNBA, I think one of the issues with the draft not being a marker is because it is so close to the NCAA women's tournament. You know, we sent out a Caitlin Clark sell alert a few weeks ago. We discussed on Wednesday's show why she's not a huge buy for us right now. And I think if you're looking at investing in girls, she's got to be the one that you would be looking at, but just not right now. I think, Paul, if you forgot to list your cards, if you didn't pay attention to our content, if you didn't look at the sell alert, if you didn't listen to Wednesday Sports Card Strategy Show, you could potentially use the draft as a sell marker. But I think a lot of these players have already kind of seen their hype build because of their performances in the NCAA tournament. But Paul, I think it's like a last-ditch effort to move these cards if you just have been living under a rock for the last several weeks, at least for the WNBA draft.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's not to say that we're not going to explore some cool things. Like, I do think I want to write an article at nooffseason.com at some point in the next month or so, identifying NBA Summer League sleepers. And there could be some Reed Shepherd cards in there. There could be, maybe it's Rob Dillingham, other guys that are end up being drafted. It could be Bronny James. Like, Bronny James, depending on if he ends up getting drafted or actually leaving college. We'll talk about that, I'm sure, in a second at the end of the show. But so I think that there could be some cards that people like Rob and the other person who asked the question earlier in the show, I can't remember who it was related to this, but was it Ian? But I think there's multiple people in the show that are thinking about those Bowman Chrome U cards related to this year's NBA draft. Matas Buzelis was in 2022. He could be a top 10 pick. These could all be summer league sell markers. I just don't think anyone's going to really care about him on June 26th. There's not the Victor Wembanyama hype around this year's draft that there's been. I think this year's NBA draft could just be a complete yawn, which I'm sad about. It would be nice if it was more fun. Now, if Bronny like enters the draft and there's some hype around, like, let's just say Bronny goes to like whatever workouts and the mini NBA draft combine and stuff that they have, and let's say like people all of a sudden they're like, Bronny's could be a top 5 pick. Now you'll get some hype. Then you'll get some hype because of his dad and who he is. But I think like without that like big name in the draft that's going to be the number 1 pick, it's just going to kind of be a weird year.
Yeah, and we'll touch more on Bronny just in a couple minutes. Thank you so much for the question, by the way, Rob. Hopefully that answer did give you something you were looking for. We're heading over now to John R. Says, when is the next sell marker for Yoshinobu Yamamoto? Are we buying or selling Yamamoto, Paul? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I don't know why you would buy him. I guess like let me rephrase that. I don't love him as a buy. I think the next selling marker would be a performance spike. I mean, we've always talked about Yamamoto as a sell when he signed in the MLB, and when he signed that big contract with the Dodgers, we sent out a sell alert, and I think we kind of never looked back on Yamamoto. Like, we never said anything else about Yamamoto. Like, we said sell at that time, and then like don't even think about him anymore. And so I think like he's a name that he is actually the odds-on favorite right now to win the NL Rookie of the Year. Jackson Chourio is second in those odds across all the top major sports books. So I guess I need to rephrase what I said a second ago. Like, I think if you love baseball, and you really like want to root for Yamamoto, it could be a play to buy in to some of his NPB cards from 2021, the Bowman Chrome cards. And then he's got WBC flag cards for 2023 Bowman that are selling. Like, a lot of them are selling right now. But they're not, he doesn't really have the right card. He doesn't have a card that's like his for sure rookie card. He doesn't have anything with a first logo on it. He doesn't have anything American. He doesn't have like an American brand release with a rookie card shield on it other than Topps Now. So it's just a tricky one for me. There's too many variables, and I don't love Yamamoto as a play. So it's like I'm doing nothing with him, not buying him. And I would have already sold. If I were John, if you have Yamamoto cards right now, like, I would go ahead and just like sell. I would look at like the next couple of times he's scheduled to pitch, and I would time an auction that sort of ends on like a Sunday evening after he just pitched or something like that. I mean, I don't even if he wins Rookie of the Year, like, I don't even know if I'd wait that long to sell him. I don't know, Connor. Like, I'm drowning on the Yamamoto answer here. Save me.
Yeah, I'm on the same page. My answer is neither, not buying or selling. We did send out a sell alert for Yamamoto as soon as he signed with the Dodgers in early January. And Yamamoto is the perfect example of how our sell alerts and our principles work. If you look at his card market across the board over the last 180 days, I have rookie card only checked. Not sure if that's actually picking that up, but over the last 180 days, Yamamoto 33.1% up. But if you look at the last 90 days since we sent the sell alert, he's down 12%. He also, in his opening debut, pitched just one inning and had 5 earned runs that he gave up. This is why we don't wait for performance-based spikes. This is why we listed before his first pitching. He's been down. He did not pitch well. If you didn't sell Yamamoto then, you'll be hoping for a performance-based spike now. I'd like Paul saying, you got to list when maybe on a primetime game against a big-time team, hoping that he pitches well, or even having an auction ending before. So that's just my 2 cents there, Paul. Do you want to add anything else?
I mean, the next guy would be Roki Sasaki. I'd rather have you put your money into Roki Sasaki. Now, he's on our player profiles. We've got some cards curated for you, so go check those out in our sports card rankings. And then the selling marker would be like the same as what Yamamoto's was. Like, we think he's going to sign in the MLB heading in the next season. And when that happens, you just, boom, get rid of him right then.
Love it. All right, up next, we're rolling over to Nick H. Hey, Paul, when is the best time to end auctions for the NFL draft? I think my notes, I kind of misinterpreted this question, Paul, so I'm going to let you go ahead and take things away, and then I'll piggyback off you.
So I think, first of all, we're not necessarily recommending that you auction off all your cards to end before, during, or after the NFL draft for all of our top guys in the NFL draft that we've talked about for the last year. In terms of buying, like, I'll rattle them off: Caleb Williams, Drake May, Rome Odunze, Malik Neighbors, Brock Bowers, Marvin Harrison Jr. There's JJ McCarthy, there's Michael Penix Jr., there's Bo Nix. Like, there's a ton of guys we're excited to be selling, right? But I think we need to pump the brakes a little bit and look at how much am I into each individual card? Where is each individual player? Like, how many of each individual player do I own, right? So, like, can I afford to say buy it now or best offer like half of my Caleb Williams's leading up to the draft and then auction off the rest after the draft? Can I afford to hold 1 or 2 because those cards all these cards for all these guys are going to have a runway? I mean, Jaden Daniels is a guy I didn't mention. Like, he should be a top 5 or 10 pick, and we haven't talked as much about him because he doesn't have Bowman cards, but he does have cards. He does have auto cards from Sage, Onyx, etc. And so, you might be holding some of those cards. So all of those cards, the Bowmans and the ones I just mentioned, even Leaf has made cards for a lot of these guys. They're going to be relevant until the pro releases come out. And so you don't need to rush to sell all of your guys now leading up to the draft in auctions and risk being underwater on some of them. What you need to do is look, how much am I into each of these? What's the going rate for them? Buy it now or best offer default first with draft hype. Field offers, accept the offers that will make you profit. And then when you do need the cash and it's clear that prices are on the rise for a particular card, then I think 7 or 10 day auctions around post-draft markers, like the first time that news breaks with XYZ player in their pro team uniform making a highlight reel catch or pass on social media. Maybe it's actual training camp or preseason performances. So, I mean, these cards are actually going to be relevant all the way up to through probably week 4 of the NFL season. So Connor said a minute ago with Yamamoto, we don't bank on performance spikes. So we don't want you to hold these cards too long, but we also don't want you to sell them too early. So it's very, very card dependent. That's the strategy I would take, Nick, in terms of, your question. I think if, bring it next week with I have these cards. Exactly. I am XYZ amount into these cards. What should I do? We'll give you a more detailed answer.
Yep. Give us some more details there, Nick, and we'll give you a finite answer next week, like Paul is saying. But thanks for the submission and appreciate your support. Up next, we're rolling over to Aaron A. Says, hello, I'm excited about being a new member. Welcome, Aaron. We are pumped to have you. And I've already made a few purchases based on the recommendations. I noticed Justin Herbert was in your sports card ranking list, but no cards were shown on the page. Is that on purpose, assuming you will add a specific card in the future when there are buying opportunities? Aaron, rankings pages, we are updating them on a daily basis with new cards, new opportunities, and new listings because they're specific listings. If those listings get sold before we hop back over to the page, sometimes it looks like there's no listings there. If you do see a profile without any cards on them, check back soon for new opportunities. I know Paul added a couple, I believe, on the 2nd, and I added a couple today. He's got right now on his page some Optic Hollow PSA 10s as well as Prism Silver, and there are more Justin Herbert cards that you can be buying right now. So, Paul, anything else you wanted to add to that?
Nope, you nailed it, man. If you ever see cards, if you ever see player profiles without cards, it just means that we're doing a good job cleaning up the listings that have just ended that aren't available anymore, and we're working on adding some new ones quickly for you. So check back.
Rounding off the show, we are going over to Jamie M. Says, I'm interested in your thoughts regarding Bronny's declaring for the draft and whether or not this is a time to buy or sell. Paul, I'm really excited to get your feedback here. We haven't actually talked one-on-one about our thoughts on this news quite yet. And I've got a few differing opinions in my own head about what we should do here. So curious to see your feedback and see where you're at.
I'm pumped about this news because whenever somebody's in the news, it's typically good for their card market because it makes them relevant. It makes people think about them. It makes people search for them, search for their cards, add their cards to watch lists, and then potentially bid on their cards or make offers on their cards. So the Bronny strategy right now is actually pretty simple. We don't know what he's going to do. The news is that he's both entered the transfer portal and declared for the draft and kept his college eligibility until he actually makes a decision based on where teams might slot him in the draft. And so I believe that this is a no-lose situation for Bronny James in particular. He's either going to get drafted, which is going to be a big deal, and there's going to be a lot of hype around that, or he's going to go back to school. And if he goes back to school, I think it's an indicator that he was not going to get drafted, but he's essentially going to go back to school somewhere else, which is going to be, I think, a significant school would want him. I think he would land in a better scenario for himself moving forward, hopefully improve his game and then get drafted the following year. So I think this is a no-lose situation for Bronny James. I think that this means that his card value could slightly be on the rise. The strategy, the sports card strategy for this is simple. It's list all of your Bronny James cards now in a buy it now or best offer. And you're going to price them based on what you are into them. And my general rule of thumb would be list for 2x what you're into it for, and go ahead and accept offers of, something that would give you about a 50% gross profit margin, which would land you maybe between 20 and 30% net profit, and go ahead and get out of Bronny James if you can. And if you can't, based on that buy it now or best offer, you're totally fine holding because we've got more selling markers coming. This news means that there's only more selling markers coming. There's either going to be an NBA draft, which we've always wanted to be the big Bronny James sell marker from the beginning, or there's going to be transfer news, which is going to be like not negative. It's going to be positive news to hopefully move his cards. So I think this is all like great news for Bronny James card holders. Full disclosure, as soon as I saw this news earlier today, I went ahead and did exactly what I told you guys to do, which was I listed all of my Bronny James cards, buy it now or best offer on my eBay store for about 2x what I'm into them for. And I'm prepared to take offers, and I'm prepared to go ahead and move out of Bronny right now if I can make like 30% net profit margin on all my Bronny James stuff.
Paul, I'm going to let your answer be our answer there. I thought you broke it down fantastically. I am going to give an answer that's not card related, so this is not sports card investment advice. I just want to put on the table, and as a flag plant, that if Bronny decides to declare and indeed go through with the NBA draft, it is a mistake for his career. I just don't think he's ready yet. But either way, like you're saying, yeah, there's a lot of good characteristics that can come out of this and events that can come out of this and scenarios for people that have Bronny James right now to make money there. So I think that rounds off our show in terms of audience questions, Paul. Hopefully everyone found a ton of value. What else you got to add for the audience before we close things out?
I don't care if Bronny James is any good at basketball. I've always maintained that he's fit this Arch Manning type of situation where he's related to a GOAT. He fits that profile of being able to generate hype because of that. And he's got the right cards. He's got Bowman Chrome first prospect autos. I've been saying buy into Bronny James for about the last 6 months. I mentioned Bronny James' name like 2 years ago. So I'm excited for potentially being able to make some money off his sports cards. But yeah, I really don't care I'm not saying that he's going to end up being a good basketball player. I think actually Yahoo Sports wrote a great article. Go ahead and read it. I mean, I think it breaks it down well. It basically says if Bronny James gets drafted, he's going to be in the G League for a long time before he ends up being a rotational NBA player. Like that is who Bronny James is. Like I'm not kidding myself, but I am excited about his card price is going up because I think there's going to be a lot of people that want to prospect on him because of who his dad is. And that's been my play the whole way. So let's go. Let's make it happen. Let's move out of Bronny.
Love it. Good stuff there, guys. Thank you all for the fantastic questions. Thank you all for the continued support. We love you guys. We truly do. We love what we're doing. And thanks for a great Overflow show. We will be back next Friday. So be sure to go over to nooffseason.com/ask to submit your questions there. Paul, what you got to close things out?
Let's hit that rock music, baby.